What is going on, YouTube fam? It's your boy Wisco Madman coming at you with day 3 of the Rittenhouse trials. Now, day 3, we get into Richie McGinnis's testimony, obviously prosecution and cross-examination, and I just want to point out that, yes, I am looking at my notes. I have an awful lot of notes, pages of them, in fact, for each day, and I just want to make sure to get all this information across to you. So, Richie McGinnis is a video director, as he calls himself, for the Daily Caller. And the Daily Caller is an online news organization founded in part by Tucker Carlson. So, now, Richie was present on the day of these protests in Kenosha. He has also been present throughout Seattle, Portland, DC, New York. He speaks on being at many of these Occupy protests for Black Lives Matter or what have you. So, he has presumably spent hours on the ground in each one of these cities in protest, unlike many cable news networks, as he likes to mention, or any news network on TV. They like to put somebody on the ground, get their footage, whatever, be it a couple minutes to maybe a half hour, whatever. And he likes to point out how they basically don't get the idea, because they get their footage, they go back to the hotel. That's it. They don't really spend time getting to know these people, being very personable and interviewing different groups. And Richie prides himself on being part of the news crew that does go do that, and individually, kind of like social media videos, how they really get down on the ground footage, talking to people and getting their words out to the public, getting honest, unfiltered words out to the public, and footage that's honest, unfiltered, unbiased out to the public. So, like I said, he says he shows what cable news doesn't. As a video director, I got the impression, and through some of his testimony, that he's basically the guy that runs the camera. He goes along with a reporter. In this case, in Kenosha, he was talking about being with a female reporter. I don't recall her name. Who knows, she may end up being on in the future. But as of right now, we're just talking to Richie, and he makes a point of mentioning that multiples of these protests, be it Portland, be it Seattle, be it Kenosha, be it New York, there's these people that tend to try to blend in, try to be part of the group, seem like they're with everybody else. They dress like everybody else. They act like they're part of the protest. But then they begin starting more of the riot type actions. They start bumping heads with protesters. They start bumping heads with the police. They throw Molotov cocktails at the police, rocks, bricks, whatever. They're inciting a riot is the idea. They're stirring shit up. Which, I mean, outside of this case, we've clearly already known that these kind of things were happening, and this just confirms it on the stand under oath that these are observations of other people that are on the ground at these protests. So, he just makes a point of bringing that up. My thought being at this time, and I try to keep these videos as at least the day 1, 2, 3, 4 reviews. I try to keep most of my opinion out of it. I'll leave that for a conclusion video at the end of all these videos that I do, but for certain points where I want to pick them out and point it out, my opinion on that is that it sounds an awful lot like things that I've heard from other people about agent provocateurs, and whether they're paid for or supplied by the government or supplied by Antifa or supplied by right-wing groups or whatever. It just seems interesting. You know, some people will blame it on the police and stuff like that. So, yeah, we'll move on from that so I don't get too much into my opinion on that, but I just wanted to point that out. Binger also is very intent on referring to the gun used as an AR-15 style weapon. An AR-15 style weapon. Consistently, just, it's got to be the point. You can't say rifle, you can't say assault rifle, you can't say any of those terms. AR-15 style weapon. It's like he's campaigning against said weapon for whatever reason. And with Richie McGinnis, this is not the only case that he makes mention of it. Then we move on to 3 guys that he's talking about in the street. They're reviewing video and whatnot, and Richie's talking about 3 people in the street holding rocks and bricks and parts of bricks, and one of them possessing a handgun. And during this time, yet another point that I just noticed Binger seeming to get off topic, I guess. Because remember, this case is about self-defense versus murder of 3 individuals. Well, 2 individuals and a third that was injured. So, yeah, I mean, politics should be mostly kept out of this. This is strictly to determine whether it was self-defense or whether it was manslaughter, murder, what have you. And, well, and obviously the lesser charges, gun possession and different things like that. But he made a point of identifying these people as black. Like, who the fuck cares? Who cares if they were black, brown, white, Asian, whatever the fuck? Who cares, dude? It really is irrelevant to the case. Especially if we're trying to fight for equality and everything else, which is a big chunk of what BLM's protesting. Why would we make mention of the color of said individuals? Seems extremely irrelevant. So these individuals got confrontational with Richie because Richie was obviously recording his live footage, and they really did not want to be videoed. And at that time, Richie decides to stop recording because of this. But this kind of goes to the agent provocateur type thing that's kind of just a little suspicious when people are so against being recorded. And obviously it's illegal acts, and they're looking to stir the pot, and they're looking to do different things, and they don't want to be recorded on footage. But this is very often, I mean, Richie really talks about they will turn an entire crowd against you. These guys are recording, these guys are against us, whatever. It's like, dude, actually they're documenting what's going on, and this can be used nationwide to put your story out there, to show the unrest, to show the frustration. So, just some observations from that. We move on to a point where Prosecutor Binger brings up a video that Richie, interview that Richie had with Tucker Carlson. this interview being on Fox News. And the point of this bringing up the video was then going to the fact that Richie McGinnis was on the ground running with these guys being Kyle Rittenhouse and Joseph Rosenbaum. The lawyers mix it up in the cases too, here or there, so I just want to be clear on that. Joseph Rosenbaum chasing after Kyle Rittenhouse, and the reporter following, or the video guy following and getting footage of this incident. To clarify, the footage of this incident from Richie McGinnis did not happen until after the shots, and the reason being is I guess there was some problem with his recording on his phone, and that's why in the heat of the moment, like once he got up the side, somehow the recording started, but the recording was not started when he's in the pursuit behind these guys right as they approach the vehicles, where Joseph Rosenbaum is then killed. Shot and killed. 4 total shots. So Binger is questioning him about this trial being 14 months after said incident, versus the fact that his interview with Tucker Carlson on Fox News was a whole 3 days after the incident. And they are judging, you have Kyle turning around so I'll try to do a representation with my hands. Kyle turning around in between these 2 cars as Joseph's running up on him. The few questions in mind are whether or not Joseph grabbed Kyle's firearm in any way, shape, or form. Richie cannot testify from his angle because Richie is then behind. So here's Joseph, Richie's behind him, Kyle's over here. So Richie cannot testify whether or not Joseph was able to put a hand on Kyle's weapon because his angle's just not there. What he does see is the fact that Joseph lunges towards his weapon, towards Kyle's weapon, his AR-15. The point being here is simply that Joseph, to our knowledge at this point, is completely unarmed. There's been no evidence to suggest that he was armed besides a plastic bag that he supposedly threw at Kyle or whatever. I don't see quite how it's relevant. It didn't have any heavy objects in it or anything like that. So at this point, there is nothing that Joseph has besides his physical presence to be of threatening to Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, where Binger starts to give Richie McGinnis shit, or give him a hard time, or question his integrity or his testimony, is whether or not the statement, his testimony, is that Joseph lunged for the firearm, or if he was falling. And quite honestly, it's semantics. It's Binger grasping at, his point is to discredit what's being said at this point. He doesn't want it to have the term lunge. Falling sounds more innocent than lunging. Lunging sounds aggressive. Lunging sounds offensive rather than any sort of innocent, non-aggressive act. And they go back and forth, and honestly, I think it was more of a petty argument than it was of any sort of evidentiary issue. He made the mention in the Tucker Carlson interview that Mr. Rosenbaum was falling. He was falling towards the weapon. And where Binger's trying to get him to say is while he's coming at said weapon, and I guess Kyle routes around his hand so he can't get his hand on the weapon, then what they're claiming is he's not lunging anymore. That's when the shots go off. You know, whether or not the shots were the initial aggression, and it's semantics, man. Clearly, Joseph was making a move towards Kyle's weapon, period. Whether or not that constitutes enough danger for self-defense, I don't know. I don't know that I necessarily agree. To this point, I can honestly say I understand the fear in a 17-year-old's mind. However, I don't know that there is enough to say that you have the right to shoot, much less shoot and kill somebody coming after you. That does not have deadly force. Yeah, I don't know. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to put any more opinion at that point. I'll let more facts towards the end give you more opinion in my conclusion. Towards the end of this day, one last input on Richie McGinnis. The judge orders Prosecutor Binger to not comment on a witness's testimony. As Binger's trying to discredit Richie, he makes some sort of comment towards like, it seems like you're wishy-washy, or it seems like you're, like he basically called him out for saying things in Binger's mindset different now, 14 months later, than he did 3 days after in that interview with Tucker Carlson. And really all I felt that Richie was trying to do, although it may have came across like he was trying to change his story, he was literally just trying to clarify the difference between falling and lunging, and he wanted to clarify that there was aggression in intent, that it wasn't just some accidental fall towards Kyle, like, oh, he turned around and that surprised Josh and that's why he fell towards him, or surprised Joseph, sorry, mixed it up again. He surprised Joseph Rosenbaum, and that's why, like, oh, in the midst of stopping, he falls towards Kyle's weapon. I call BS. That's kind of my personal opinion right now, but whether or not that still makes it right for him to shoot him, there again, like I said, I'm indeterminate on that. The final witness brought to the stand, mainly because there wasn't too much that I found interesting off the cross-examination of Richie. We move on to Ryan Balch. The prosecution brings Ryan Balch to the stand. Ryan Balch is a vet with 2 tours, one in Afghanistan, one in Iraq. And the reason why Ryan Balch is relevant in this case is Ryan Balch was the guy that was alongside Kyle for a good chunk of the night as part of the, I guess, shall we say, militia protecting the car source business in this area. Ryan Balch comes into play with 4 other individuals, or 3 other individuals, I believe, as a total of 4 in his known group, but they are added to countless other individuals amongst this militia protecting the car source. When we say militia protecting the car source, this is a community gathering amongst people from the general area, the Milwaukee, whatever kind of Illinois area, I guess, if you include Kyle and whoever else. I think there was somebody else that came from Antioch as well. But anyway, this is a gathering of people. So Ryan Balch Being a vet, the reason that qualifies is his firearm knowledge, his combat knowledge, his assessment of overall situation. Most of his testimony, so we get to a point where they're going to the ultimate gas station on the other side of the police line. This is where there's a separation between Kyle and Ryan. Prosecutor Binger calls into question Ryan's staying with Kyle, and the reason being is Ryan's kind of portrayed it as he's Kyle's babysitter per se, because he's an inexperienced individual in this scenario. I mean, yeah, we're getting to this point, we're developing knowledge about it. I'm starting to develop somewhat of a picture that although I believe in your right to bear arms, your right to defend, all these kinds of things, and this all applies to adults, I feel like there's a little bit of inexperience from Kyle's standpoint, and yeah, so Ryan ends up babysitting Kyle up to Ultimate gas station, at which point they become separated. It sounded like maybe within the half an hour after this, while Balch is standing at the gas station, there's another video shown. That's the video where you see Kyle flash by the camera. I believe that's Richie McGinnis's video, as a matter of fact. Kyle flashes past the camera holding a fire extinguisher, med pack on his side. Ryan Balch is in said picture. How he didn't keep track of Kyle in this scenario is beyond me. He claims to not see him, claims to not, and he was in the attempt of trying to track him down. Personally, I think Kyle got separated from him. My development off of this just sounds like Ryan just said, screw it, whatever, the kid can handle himself. And he left the man behind to an extent. Is it his responsibility? Is it relevant to the case? I don't believe so. I don't believe that changes anything in which we're being charged for here, nor was it specifically Ryan's responsibility to make sure that Kyle doesn't murder anybody. If that's where we're going with this, is that's where the prosecutor's trying to go, it's not, nobody's responsible for making sure another guy doesn't murder somebody else. That just kind of sounds a little ridiculous. We're responsible for our own actions. But yes, I see where Binger's going. If he had stayed by his side, there's a good chance the opportunity would have never happened in which Kyle would have been left solo and felt the need to defend himself. That's obviously why many a times I'll say, and most of the time in the city, police officers travel in a minimum of twos. They always call for backup. That's a big thing, because obviously simple stature, simple appearance of being here with another individual here, you're less likely to do something against two people than you are against one. Simple. What I will say is, from my personal take, trying to side with Ryan a little bit, Mr. Balch, the veteran, I would say that I sense a little bit of sticking together, not ratting anybody out, not turning against somebody. So, like, if you were to be called to the stand, it's not so much that you're lying, it's that you're trying to avoid answering things in a way that presents yourself as criminal or presents the person that you're testifying against as criminal. And that's just kind of a code between people, I would say. And up to this point, I don't see Kyle as a malicious murderer, I don't see him as seeking out these people per se. I see him, if at all, being in a situation where he made the wrong decisions or potentially made the wrong decisions. Yeah, so we're not looking at a guy that's running around purposely murdering people or trying to, you know, I don't see that, but that's as of right now. So that pretty much wraps it up. Binger really just used most of the Ryan Balch time to make him sound like a guy that left his fellow man behind, and that's why he killed somebody. So we move into day 4 tomorrow, or later today, maybe. I mean, truth be told, I watched day 3 yesterday. I didn't have time until today to make this video. I'm trying to get on top of this and really knock these out, but I mean, there's usually a good 4 to 6 hours of actual footage to watch per day, so bear with me. We will continue to power through this, and I will give you a conclusion at the end of all this with a little bit more opinion and a little bit more of my take. And yet again, yes, we know at the end of the trial, he is found not guilty of any of the charges. This has been your boy, Wisco Madman. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think. Tell me I'm a dumbass. Whatever you want to do. And I'll catch you on day 4.